miscommunication or lost in translation between me and Mail. So basically, what I was thinking of doing was to look at 5 regional or global hotspots which are of interest to us in India, and to look at what Russia's perspective towards them are. Of course, we can talk about the Russia-China relationship, which is on everyone's minds these days. But the 5 hotspots that I picked on was India, China, US, China, Afghanistan, South China Sea, and the Middle East. I'm not going to touch on the situation in Ukraine, though it is something which is of great importance to the Russians. Why? Because the situation remains more or less in limbo for the last couple of years. But first, I'll very briefly explain what Russia's domestic and foreign policy imperatives are. So domestically, there are 2 things which matter to Putin. One is that he needs to ensure that there is economic growth, and the second is to ensure that there is political stability. And both of these have actually come under threat because of COVID, because obviously oil prices are falling. And as you all know, Russia is this exporter of energy surpluses, and the sales from energy, the money from the energy sales actually contributes to about 30% of Russia's budget and 25% of its GDP. And then, in addition to this, there has been some unhappiness with how Putin has responded to the COVID crisis. His popularity is on the wane, according to independent observers, even though he's been able to pass the constitutional amendment, which will keep him in power for like many, many years again. But overall, we would see that Russia seems to be a power, or a power which is in decline, because it has a very shrinking population. There is mounting corruption. We all know about the mafia in Russia, and then this one-sided dependency on exports of oil. And so there is a sagging. You will say that there is sagging living standards, and that the political system in Russia is pretty much paralyzed right now. As far as foreign policy imperatives are concerned, one is that the Russians have this self-image of being a great power, and so they want to remain a great power. They want to keep their spheres of influence to themselves, particularly the post-Soviet sphere, and of course they want to develop the national economy. And this is exactly where we need to look at the significance of the Russia-China relationship. China, on its own, is the largest trade partner of Russia, and increasingly it is becoming a huge investor in Russia. A lot of trade between Russia and China is now de-dollarized, in the sense that it is made either in the yuan or in rubles. And again, there is also this possibility that so Russia is becoming extremely for cheap products, while a lot of its exports are going towards China. It's built a lot of pipelines which go towards China, and China has become this very stable exporter of Russian energy as far as Russians are concerned. There is also a little bit of worry in Russia that because of COVID, Russia will become even more dependent on China, because it will probably be the first country to stage an economic recovery, and volumes of energy which have been going to China have remained stable, because Beijing is trying to fill up its strategic reserves. Uh, so basically, Putin's worldview, or Russian worldview, is basically about reviving Russia as a global power, which has the ability to change the facts on the ground in regions like the Middle East and North Africa, and to bring stability and prosperity at home. And so Russia's perspective towards the conflicts that I was speaking about is a function of all of these imperatives. So first, let's look at how Russia is approaching the current confrontation between China and India. And this is something which is at the top of our minds, of course. Uh, Officially, the Russians have remained pretty neutral on the India-Russia conflict. They've put out a statement saying that it is best that India and China solve it bilaterally. But in effect, I think Russia's approach has been much more positive towards India, because it is to India than to China, and it is expediting the arms sales. Also, remember that I think on our part as well, I think the Russian envoy was the first or the only envoy to be briefed after Prime Minister Modi called up President Trump. Then we've had a lot of discussions with the Russians, whether it is the ambassador talking to the deputy foreign minister, or whether there's a defense minister going to Russia to celebrate, to participate in the Victory Day celebrations. So that shows the unprecedented level of trust between India and the Russians. And I believe the Russians are working very, very frantically behind the scenes to cool the tempers. Why? Because the Russians do not want to choose between either India or China, and they do not want to get involved in this fracas, because the Russians want the Eurasian continent to remain peaceful. And as far as they're concerned, it's important that India and China solve their differences, because it is important to resolve this, because it's important to their idea of a multipolar world. And this is something that the Russians have always wanted, that we should not move towards a bipolar world or remain a unipolar world. Uh, and India and China will have great stakes in a multipolar world. That is at least what they perceive to be an ideal situation. And they also worried about the negative impact that the India-China tensions could have. Important because a lot of chat on social media about how the Americans have been helping us and all of that. But please do remember that in 1962, India's first major defense contract was with the Russians for the MiG-29s, and this was just before the war with the Chinese. So even in that war, even though the Russians did not really support India, the MiGs were given to India, of course, but the Russians did not support the Chinese either in the 1962 war. And in Kargil, of course, we know, of course, 1971, the war with Pakistan, the amount of help that the Soviets gave us, and the Russians actually gave us weapons from their own stockpile. Uh, Again, Russians have never sanctioned India. And also remember that the kind of advanced technology that the Russians are offering India, they do not offer to anyone else. And they're very, I mean, for instance, the nuclear-powered submarine that they're giving us, they very obviously they know that this is not going to be used against the Pakistanis. It's going to be used against the Chinese. So I think from there and from their support to India on various issues, particularly on reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir, we know exactly where the Russians stand on the India-China issue. And even yesterday, I think there was this interview by the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister where he says there is absolutely no limits to the cooperation between India and Russia. So moving on to the second global sport, this is at a more systemic level. This is the US-China confrontation. We all understand that Russia's relations with the West are at the lowest point since the 2000s, I think. But just like in the case of India and China, Russia does not want to get drawn into a Cold War between the US and China. And they're also aware that just because there are tensions between the United States and China, it does not decrease the pressure on the Russians from the US, because the US believes in a dual confrontation with Russia and China. So they are also not happy because they are worried that COVID will make them much more dependent on China, because COVID is going to affect the US economy even worse than it's going to affect the Chinese. But at some level, I think there is also a sense of relief in Russia that thanks to these tensions, the Russia and China will not, I mean, the United States and China will not come together. They will not become a G2 or become a duopoly. And that is, as far as they're concerned, G2 of US and China is like their biggest nightmare. At some level, there is relief because they realize that if the US focuses more on Russia, its attention will shift to the Indo-Pacific, and therefore Russia will be able to keep its spheres of influence to itself, and Russia will be able to position itself as a separate pole of geopolitical gravitation. So basically, their inherent worldview, or their geopolitical worldview, as far as the US-Russia tensions are concerned, is that they do not want to be part of the competition between them. They don't want it to intensify so much that they have to choose a side. But the ultimate object is that both the US and China will approach Russia for geopolitical support. In a replay of what happened during, except that in this case, they want to be the swing state, so to say. So the third spot that I looked at was Afghanistan. the Russians, of course, have welcomed the deal between the Taliban and the United States. They basically do not want a superpower right next door. And in fact, Moscow hosted a lot of these meetings between the Taliban, and they even wanted to be the guarantor of the deal between the United States and Taliban. And also related to this is the fact that unlike India, they see Pakistan as being part of the solution in Afghanistan. And so their relations with Pakistan have become much stronger in the last few years. But basically, Russia's interest in Afghanistan is about the rise of Islamic fundamentalism, and it sees the Taliban as a potential bulwark against rise of Islamic fundamentalism and the spread of Islamic fundamentalism from Afghanistan towards Central Asia and then onto Russia. And its role in Afghanistan is basically part of its attempts to assert itself as a regional power. So it wants to kind of influence outcomes in this region because it is seen as a strategic backyard for them. So basically, it does not want destabilization or a radical government in Afghanistan. Um, they're also worried that a destabilized Afghan state will give more opportunities to drug traffickers. Do remember that again, Russia has a big drug problem. It has the highest per capita consumption of heroin. So it also wants. It's not that the Russians are only they only have links with the Taliban. They have also been hedging with all of the other ethnic factions, whether it's the Pashtuns or whether it is the Shias or the Hazaras in Afghanistan. So they basically have a hedging strategy, and they're linking with Taliban because they realize that it's quite suddenly look. Practically all of Afghanistan, except for the large cities, are controlled by the Taliban today. So they realize that at some point the Taliban is going to take over. So they want to keep that those lines of communications open with the Taliban. And as far as the Taliban is concerned, of course, the Russian, the links with the Russians are giving them a sense of legitimacy. And in this approach, in the sense that the Russians want intra-Afghan negotiations to happen, the Russians, the Chinese, the Pakistanis, and the Iranians are on the same plate, so to say. The fourth region or the fourth source of tension that I was looking at is the South China Sea. And again, on the South China Sea, Russia has taken a neutral stance about Beijing's claims on the South China Sea. Why? Because Russia does not really have too many stakes there. But interestingly, Russia is, cooperating with both China and its rival claimants in the South China Sea because it has good relations with the countries bordering the South China Sea, and it does not want to offend Southeast Asia for the sake of peaceful resolution, and we should follow the law of the sea and all of that. But unlike the United States, it does not want any extra regional interference, which of course implies that they do not want the United States to be playing a role there. And again, unlike the United States, Russia has never publicly questioned the 9-dash line of the Chinese. Again, in 2016, Putin had said that after the PCA ruling, he had said that Russia supports China's decision not to recognize the PCA's court ruling. But this is a misleading statement in the sense that people would think that this is complete support for the Chinese, but actually the Russians' position is basically that the PCA did not, the Chinese were not part of the arbitration, and so the PCA only listened to one party, which is Philippines, and so so the Russians thought that the Chinese do not really have to recognize this ruling, and this was basically because the Ukrainians were planning to go to the PCA against the Russians. So that is, you can link it to their fears about them being dragged to the PCA over Ukraine or the annexation of Crimea. Despite continued warnings, again, the Chinese have been again not too happy with Russia's activities in South China Sea, and they've given several warnings for Rosneft not to get involved in energy exploration, but Rosneft has continued to do that. So theoretically, if you look at Russia's behavior in the South China Sea, there are two modes of great power behavior. One is, of course, systemic balancing, Russia supports China, or it continues its support or its cooperation with China, not because it supports what China is doing in the South China Sea, or it supports China's territorial claims in the South China Sea, but it is doing so because it helps Russia's anti-US balancing attempts. The other mode of great power behavior in the South China Sea is regional engagement. So it is actually hedging by selling arms to both to China and to Vietnam, and also because it has these very long ties with Vietnam. So it does not want to take sides at the expense of one or the other. And I think this is an arrangement which China is not too unhappy with, because it realizes that if the Russians continue to give weapons and arms to the Vietnamese, um, there is Vietnam will be that much further away from the Americans, because if the Russians stop, Vietnam will be completely within the United States containment circle. So the Chinese the Middle East, and we all saw how Russia has projected power in the Middle East during the Syrian crisis, and basically Russia has been trying to reclaim its Cold War role and become a counterweight to the United States in the US. And the US's disinterest in the region has, of course, helped the Russians. And interestingly, the Russians, unlike the Americans, they have very good relations with most of the countries, even those which are opposed to each other, like the Iranians and the Israelis. Until recently, it had very good relations with the Saudi Arabs, for instance. Essentially, I think Russia's involvement in the Middle East, you can trace back to the Libyan resolution 1973, where the Russians supported the resolution, but they felt betrayed because the West had promised not to go into Libya. But we saw that the French were leading this intervention in Libya, and then the chaos that happened, which we all understand how that led to the rise of the Islamic State. Again, the Russian intervention in Syria was interesting in the sense that it chose an approach which the United States has always used, which is using airstrikes, and also it wanted to send a message to the Middle East that it will support its allies, uh, unlike the United States, which during the Arab Spring, which kind of eschewed relations with some of the regimes. Uh, Also, as far as Russia is concerned, better relations with the avoid international isolation. And then, of course, since the region has a lot of oil and gas, they wanted to kind of come to some kind of cooperative effort there. Uh, in the Middle East were motivated by what happened in Libya and Iraq, where they realized that the kind of chaos that happens after the destruction of these regimes leads to all kinds of fundamentalists coming to power or gaining power. And then most importantly here, I think, is that Russia is very concerned about the developments in the Middle East, because there are a large number of Russians and of Muslims in Russia. I think 12 to 13% of 12 to 15% of Russia's population is Muslim, and therefore they are worried that radical ideas from the Middle East would permeate towards Central Asia and its own southern borders. And remember, there were a lot of Russian-speaking jihadists in the Islamic State, so additional worries for them there. Also remember that the Middle East is not too far away from the Russians, and they have had these very old links with the Ottoman Empire, and the Russians, in fact, refer to the Middle East as the Near East. So it's that. It's that close to them. Russian arms exports are of particular interest because they are seen to be reliable in Middle East. So again, as far as the Russians are concerned, arms exports are a source of revenue, and also it employs like 25 lakh people in in Russia. So it's an important industry as far as the Russians are concerned. And one factor which has worked to Russia's advantage is that unlike the United States, it does not talk about human rights. And it is seen as a reliable ally, unlike the United States. Um, so in conclusion, if you look at the first four out of the five sports that I picked, China is a major player. So I believe I've addressed the elephant, rather the dragon in the room. So Russia's perspectives and approaches to all of these conflicts have a lot to do with its image as a great power, whether it is in Middle East or Afghanistan. Its fight against Islamic fundamentalism is behind its approach in the Middle East and Afghanistan. Again, drugs is its need to protect its people from drugs that is driving its behavior in the Middle East and Afghanistan. And related to all of this is its primal need, in a sense, to balance the United States and to be seen as an equal great power, which can change the facts on the ground. Uh, and of course, its need to develop its economy, and that is where China comes in, and it also wants to preserve its old friends like India and Vietnam. So basically, Russia's approach is all about reviving Russia as a global power, which has clout in these regions, and to bring economic prosperity to the Russian people. Uh, I think I'll stop there. I hope I've not taken too much time. My video has stopped. It looks like, I mean, I hadn't noticed. I'm of course happy to take up any questions that you may have.